Hey everybody, Texas Stroker here, Lance's Performance Shop, LoneStarMopars.com. You're probably wondering what is going on. Well, we got a real quick unboxing to do. You'll have to bear with me here. There we go. One more piece. Checkmate. So, true story, that's obviously not how this thing was shipped, and going by the fact that I'm a straight shooter with thumbnails and titles, kind of already know what it is, but for those of you that don't look at the title, it's a trailer hitch. And, this particular one is from Curt. I believe it's their part number 15300. I picked this up from Summit. Believe it was $222.99, something like that. Prices are probably only going to go up given the fact that this is made out of metal. As best I know, these are made down in Texas. Could be mistaken on that, but that's to the best of my understanding. The reason we went through Summit, 1, they're in Arlington. 2, that means there's really fast transit. And 3, they didn't have any oversized charges on this. There are a couple of other hitches I had considered, but they got hit with like a $59, $60 oversized charge. And why would I do that when they're pretty much the same thing? And some of them were like a little bit more, some were a little less, but then you throw on another 60 bucks and it's like, well, we're going to go with the Curt because it's the most economical and I can have it in 2 days. So that's what we did. This came in a plain box, you know, sort of like what you would see there. No markings, no Curt labeling, nothing. I naturally assumed that was to be discreet, and then on the inside they'd have like a fancy Curt box with all the specs of the trailer hitch and optional accessories. No, this thing was located right inside the plain cardboard box. Nothing wrong with that, it's just certainly not what I expected. And then the other thing, this just had like 6 foam pillows, 2 very large that would match kind of the length of the product, and then 4 smaller ones. They were just kind of stuffed in. They got it here, the box wasn't beat up too bad, but I mean, it's one of those things, you know, you always have to point stuff out. I mean, there's scuffs there, there's scuffs on the other side mirroring it. It looks like they did a nice job with the powder coat. It's just a situation where you'd love to see a little bit more effort put into preventing cosmetic damage, right? So there's nothing structurally wrong with it. No one's really ever going to see it. The only person that's going to know it's there is you and whoever installs it, provided you don't install it yourself. But just wrapping it with bubble wrap or something beforehand would have been nice. Now, they did use bubble wrap on the receiver hitch, and I think that was primarily just so they could get the hardware to you. The hardware is up here on this box. As you can see here, looks like I was correct on the part number. 15300. This is BK in this case. Got to be careful because there's like some springs in here that'll stab you. But looks like that's going to be a list of the hardware. Looks like you got some grade 8 stuff, some carriage bolts, some spacers or tabs, all kinds of good stuff. We'll open up and kind of see what we've got. Now, not included is what we have here. This is Curt 55329 custom wiring harness. If we look down here, you can see, kind of zoom in a little for you. This is going to work for 95 to 01 Ram 1500s. I assume 94 would work. I don't know what they would have changed. Maybe they did. But essentially, 2nd gen Rams are roughly covered, as is the Dakota. Now, the way this is going to work, if you can tell, what this should do is provide a 4-way trailer plug access with no cutting, no hacking, no splicing. This is just plug and play, so essentially you would like unplug the rear harness from the lights, plug this in, and it splits it 2 ways, right? So we'll go through town there. Straight up honest with you, I don't pull trailers often. When I do, it's like at work. So the reason I'm buying this is not because the factory hitch sucked. It's not because the aftermarket one I installed in 2003 was junk. It has never had one. There's no receiver hitch on this truck whatsoever. Bumper pull only, or anchor something to the frame rail. I pulled some trees and stuff with like chain, but I sort of anchored it down on the body. This would obviously have been way better. And then the other thing, it's just, there's twofold reasons for this. Number 1, clearly and most importantly, we did not have one, right? And number 2, the other thing, and this is kind of a low-key, sort of stupid reason, but possibly smart, I knew I wanted to get one, and I've yet to mount the backup camera. The backup camera I've kind of held off doing because I have to still do some stuff in the interior with AFR gauge. Can't really do that till I have the exhaust. The headers, as best I know, this long drawn out header saga, They should be coming back to me Wednesday at work. I should finally get them back from whatever it is I've done to them, which no, I still won't tell you. That'll be in the next video. It should be pretty cool though, I'll tell you that much. But I kind of, you know, like until I get that AFR gauge set up, I can't really put the interior back together, so I've just kind of been on the wool with this one. What I discovered, what I wanted to do, I had like a mount picked out, sort of I've run everything through here and you could fit it. Then when you go to shut the tailgate, you've got some issues, okay? If we come up here, we could totally cut this out. I hate to do it. My latch is actually in good shape. And the issue that I've got is with that camera, let's say that it lasts me 3 years and it goes out, right? I want a new one. I want to replace it. I liked it. Maybe you hated it and you want to upgrade. The dynamics of the cameras are constantly changing, particularly over the span of several years. So what we would run into, if I cut this out perfectly for our little Kenwood or rig something up or build it, here in a little bit, the camera's probably going to be smaller or a total different profile, or maybe it's like cell phones and they go back bigger. It's just kind of a weird deal. So by coming in with this, you see we've got that nice beefy, like looks like 1/4 inch plate at the top. I don't know if the camera will clear there. I don't know if it would fit. We've then got, of course, the whole runners. This just gives me more space to see if there's somewhere I can put it, and that's kind of the extent of it. So this will be nice for pulling, just literally pulling, and doesn't even have to be a trailer. I've got like nice connection points now. Obviously this truck is factory off-road, so it's got a lift in the back. It sits up pretty good. And so having this sets it down a little bit lower. Obviously then we also don't have to worry about ripping the bumper or twisting the bumper. Again, you can't use a ton of weight on those. Being lifted, it's even worse because you put funky load angles on everything. But that's what we got. That's why we got it. Great price, easy delivery, no overcharge, you know, for shipping size or weight or any of that stuff. Curt, I've had good luck with their stuff in the past, and again, I believe it's made in Texas. Don't hold me to that, but I want to say it is. Looks good aside from like super minor cosmetic stuff. It's easily preventable is what's sad, but you can't complain too terribly much. But I do have to point it out. Again, I mean, just it's easy to see what I mean, you know, like just wrap it, you know, and it would prevent that. But that said, we're gonna go ahead. I've got to move all this stuff. If you're curious what that bubble wrap is, well, that's going to be another huge project we'll be undertaking soon. If the headers don't show up, it might be sooner than we all expect. So I'll give you a hint. That's black. It's probably 16 gauge, and you would put your feet on it. So think of that what you will, and see if you can figure out what it is. But for now, I've got to move that so I can get under there. This is not super heavy, but it's going to be awkward heavy. Meaning if you're a one-man show, you don't have anyone to help you. See also me, most likely you. It's jack stands. I'm hoping maybe that transmission stand will come into play for me, sort of like a second person helper, robot thing, assistance aid, whatever you want to call it. So we got to clear it out, see how everything's going to line up. I don't know, we may have to bush some holes out, drill some new holes. We shall see. I'll see if those are instructions or if it's just like a hardware list, and we'll take it from there. So that's what it is. That's why we got it, what we paid for it. I'll have it linked below. Again, I make nothing off of that. It's solely for your convenience. And that said, if Summit wants to sponsor the channel, I will gladly accept. There are quite a few things we bring in from them, and a ton more that I would love to have. So with that said, I'm going to quit rambling. We're going to get this thing. I'll cut that cardboard. I think that might have Curt branding under it, maybe like load or weight ratings on one side or the other. We'll cut that off. I'll move this stuff. We'll get it under the truck. We'll kind of see what we're looking at, and I'll scan the hardware out for us. Alright, you can't see that too well, but it's 93. I'm dripping sweat back here. We've opened the hardware pack. We've got some fish wire for 1/2 inch and 9/16 hardware. Coming in, we've got 6 of these little plates that are punched out for 1/2 inch carriage bolts. We're going to have 4 1/2 inch carriage bolts there with the corresponding flange nuts. These 2 bigger ones that are a little shorter, those are punched out for 9/16 carriage bolts. You can see them there. The other thing, interestingly, the 9/16, if they look a little shorter to you, it's not just because the nuts are there. They're 1 3/4 inches, where these are 2 inches. Just kind of helps you differentiate the two if you have trouble. That is the hardware. I've got some of the tools we might need. 13/16, and then a 3/4, or I'm sorry, 7/8. I've got sweat in my eyes. Grabbed a ratchet, a couple of wrenches. This is a look at the instructions, and I can tell you right now, the hardware's there. But if you look at the top, 15300 is designed for 73 to 97 Fords. Okay, that's a problem. 78 to 97 Broncos. And I honestly thought they quit making the Bronco in 96. Not that I keep up with it, but 67 to 02 Dodge Rams, right? So I can tell you right now, based on what I've seen, the 6702 Rams are down here. Basically, it's going to tell you if the bumper interferes with the hitch, loosen the bumper brackets, reposition upward, and retighten. At the rear of the frame, find the half-inch round holes and enlarge the holes to accommodate 9/16 hardware. To me, the rear of the frame, I guess going by their schematic, front and rear would be back, tailgate, far as you can go, termination point, right? I could see people easily confusing that even with their directions. Let's see here. Place 9/16 and square spacer down through the hole in the frame in each of the enlarged holes. Raise the hitch into position and secure with 9/16 flange nuts on each bolt, hand tighten only. Center hitch and use as a template to drill the remaining holes to accommodate half-inch hardware. Place half-inch carriage bolts and square hole spacers in all mounting holes. Secure with a flange nut, blah blah blah. It is a pain in the butt. I'm able to position it and just tell that nothing really seems to line up. The thing is, you know, your heavy mass is here in the middle, so you can kind of grab your hands around that paper and lift it up, bench press it if you will, no issues. I think it's 52 pounds, not a heavy thing. However, when you're doing that, then you don't have hands or eyes that can come out to the frame rails and see if this menagerie of holes lines up. Similarly, if they did or didn't, you don't have a way to hold a marker and mark where you need to drill, let alone center punch or get things like good. And subsequently, I was like, well, I'll just, flip around, right? Instead of me being in the middle, I'll just kind of go put myself on the passenger side, lift this up with my shoe on the driver's side, and see if it lines up. I think I had it pretty close, and I don't think much of anything was lining up. There's like one, pick your poison out of these 5 holes on these flanges, one up there by itself, and then 2, 3, 4, and 5. You could maybe get one to line up, okay? Now, the issue there is, like, again, I could throw that together, see if I like it, and then try to kind of punch it, but I need another hand. And so, subsequently, what we've done here, I was using, it's probably not advisable, but I was using that little impact to kind of stand that up a little quicker. This wants to rotate. That's the other thing. While this is the center mass and the heaviest, this then flops around in the breeze like crazy, which is not good. So, again, being kind of a one-man show by myself, I grabbed our transmission jack, which we're lucky to have. If you don't have that, maybe jack stands, you could sling one side, go to the other. It's going to be hard, though, because your bumper kind of hangs down lower than the frame. So it'd take like a couple of trial and error things, for most people. But with this, I was trying to strap it, and then I was afraid that the ratchet strap was going to hit the tire and keep this from going into place, so I came in with clamps that shouldn't impact anything since they're lower than the square beam. So we got 2 Pittsburghs. I know people hate these clamps. I've used them kind of for body work, and they're still here. There's a lot of splatter on them from welding and stuff, but I'm not super confident in them either. That's why there's 2 of them. And then right there, that's actually brand new out of the bag. It was a tool of the day in 11-inch NWS. I've got it on a little bit more secure of a fit. The problem is, the way this transmission jack pan is, that's not like a flush surface. It's sort of like the waves of the ocean, sort of a V or a W, I guess. So I'm gonna probably quit using the impact just so I don't tear that thing up, and I'm gonna spin this up under the truck and see if I can kind of get it in place. If I can, I'll throw some hardware in. I don't know that I need to show you the underside of the truck really, because we're gonna go under there, and it looks like we're gonna have to drill a lot. So maybe it'll line up better than I'm able to see, but I'm right now not super confident. And I'm thinking this is probably more inclined for what they listed at the top of the directions, which would be a Ford. Not that I'm not used to that, being a Mopar guy. But would it really be that bad if you can run a hitch from 67 to 02 for Dodge Ram? Would it be that difficult to just have a standalone part that maybe fit a little bit better? And that's actually a pretty wide, there's a ton more Ford trucks out there, when initially, not that they last, but that's a wide range of years too, so I don't quite know why we can't maybe not just have dedicated part numbers. I mean, it's not like I'm asking for 16 hitches, it's 2. Sorry about that, had to take a call there, but I'm gonna roll this thing under there, hope it stays upright, try to spin it by hand so I don't chew up the end of it with the impact, and see if I can hopefully find more than one hole on both sides that lines up. Alright, so that thing's working like a champ. I've had it in place as best I can, had to lower it to back it out because, for whatever reason, this hole right here at the rearmost portion of the frame rail, you go this way towards the spare or towards the engine. So forwardmost engine side, you come out, this is the tailgate, the rear bumper, obviously end of the truck. And why you can't just run a 1/2 inch bolt through there is beyond me, but they want us to enlarge that to 9/16. No obstructions on the passenger side, however, gotta watch my head here so I don't click it on the pliers. This one there is like a steel tab of some sort, kind of like a lock or a flange retainer of some sort. I can't really, I think you can kind of see it there, the shiny thing. And so I'm not sure what that is doing. I guess it's just some sort of a bracket reinforcement. So that may become something we have to contend with, because if I were to go straight up through this hole to drill it out, where you can kind of see my finger come back and forth, we would have hit that, and I don't want to do that. But I don't know if I'll just use a rasp maybe, or a step drill, and kind of just, we just have to go up, you know, one side. It's not the end of the world, but it doesn't make sense to me why you couldn't just have a 1/2 inch bolt there. And again, we've got nice provisions here along the frame rail, and apparently that's probably just sized for forward, so that's disappointing. But I guess I'll enlarge this thing so I can put the bolts in and then see where else we have to drill the frame rail. It's already pre-drilled, which I'm not, this is something I would not rebuy, I'll tell you that. So when they advertised this, everything I saw said you might have to drill 2 holes, and it looks like you had to do everything to make the thing fit, which if you tell me that ahead of time, I just won't buy it. So I would much rather have a direct fit, so kind of a stupid little setup in my opinion, but I'll have to figure this thing out first. It's one of these bolts coming through here has like some little tab on it, so I'll get that figured out. We'll bush this thing out, and then we'll put the 9/16 hardware in the back slot and see what that does for us. Well, that escalated quickly. This has turned into even more of a nightmare situation compared to what I thought was just going to be like a bolt-in hitch. So, backside, I was finally able to get 3/4 to work. This seems to be like some hodgepodge rusted body bolt. I still have no clue what size the front is. 9/16, 14 doesn't really fit. 15 doesn't fit either. 5/8 is way too big. No clue. And, all I know is 3/4 fit on the backside is probably a 19, but I just got sick of messing with it, threw the impact on it, broke her free. You can see that tab now right there pointed up towards those 2 rusted bolts. That's the one that was down in that hole that we would have drilled. So I came in, I had to use a step drill, and then I came in and followed that up with a rasp. We have got, as you can see kind of right there, that's been drilled, and then if I slide you back over, we have drilled this one. You can tell by the fresh metal. I always like to paint that stuff. That said, we need to apparently mock this thing up by holding it in place with a 9/16 bolt in order to see where else we need to drill, because all these beautifully pre-drilled holes in the frame rail look to be something that Curt obviously didn't care too much about. I assume their focus was more on Fords, so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we'll bolt this up and they'll all line up beautifully, but I don't think that's the case. Alright, so we've got this thing loosely. I haven't tightened them down or anything, just spun them on. Interestingly enough, the driver's side drops in way easier than this side. I mean that with the holes cleaned out. And I'm kind of thinking if I come over here where the light is, you'll see what I mean. We've just got way more thread coming down, so I don't know if it's just off center on the stand or something. But without the stand, this would have been an enormous pain in the butt. What we're gonna have to do now, if I really don't have space in here, but it looks like that will actually work if we want it to, the second one. And then 3 and 4 are just, there's nothing. I mean, we've got nothing to work with. This is not even close to being remotely compatible with what we have pre-drilled in the frame rail, which is a shame because, again, that's what I thought I was buying. It's how it was advertised. So there's no miscommunication. There's just a failure to deliver, in my opinion. So what I'm thinking is I'm not exactly sure, which of these we have to run. I guess it'd be 2 per side, so I don't know where we would drill, but I mean, there's nothing else that's going to line up aside from that one. So I don't know. I'm assuming we would for sure want one in the farthest most forward, or back in this case, whatever you want to call it. But again, towards the engine, towards the tailgate being the one that we've enlarged. That's the whole thing's based around. So yeah, 0 attempts were made on, in my opinion, to have this be compatible. And again, that's just a shame, but like I said, I kind of see how that's not flush, the actual hitch to the frame rail. I don't know if you can see that. I don't have space to get up there, but it's very apparent back here, like there's a huge gap there. I could put my finger in between the hitch and the frame, so I need that to go back, and then that very well could, of course, occlude holes or open some up. It's not likely it's going to do that, but it might. So I kind of need to lower it off this stand and then swing it up somehow, like support it on one side so I can trace holes, so I can drill, because apparently I have to drill everything, which is just stupid since that's not what we paid for. So I didn't buy a universal drill to fit hitch. I bought one that was specifically supposed to fit this year of truck, and it falls well short of that. So anywho, all the griping aside, I've got metal all in the folds of my arm kind of stabbing me, but I may have to call it a night here. I've got to go to work in the morning. I haven't eaten anything. I hate eating at like 10 p.m. and then it postpones workout and all that crud, so I will try to position this, and just if we could get circles drawn where I need to drill or something, that would be great, and I can showcase it. We'll lower it, showcase how far off the stupid thing is. I would advise second-gen Ram people to avoid this unless you particularly want to drill. I think, again, had I have known this, then I would have thought, well, you shouldn't have to pay that kind of money for something that you're going to have to completely, make fit, and, it is what it is. So this is like a $99 item to me. I would expect to have to do this with 222 and advertise to fit the truck. No. So very disappointed in the product itself in terms of fitment. I'm not terribly disappointed in, like the structure or what looks to be the integrity of it, but just kind of dampens things, right? So anywho, I will be working on this, and we'll catch you with an update. Okay, so new day here, and I think I screwed up. I think I messed up by reading the directions, and I should have just done it my way, and I think we could have avoided some things. Now, this could totally backfire. I don't know. Might not line up correctly, but if you note, they claim that you need to drill or enlarge, in the case of a Dodge, the rearmost holes from 1/2 inch to 9/16. Okay, now we did that. And if I take you down here, right here, this one that's shiny, okay, if I bring the old Astro around and tilt her up, you'll see the fresh metal, right? I enlarged that to 9/16, and I can get the hitch lined up. It doesn't want to go over the frame rail. You'll see there's a lip. It's really hard for you to see that, actually. But it's not flush, like it's almost like a turn down, sort of a cut piece of angle, you could just describe it as, right? So I'm sitting here and I'm like, that doesn't really fit well. I wonder if they sent me the wrong hitch or something. And I'm thinking, well, no, it's universal. It's apparently now we know. So it should just line up. So I'm sitting there and there's nothing that lines up. I mean, none of these 5 whatever holes in this thing line up with anything on the frame rail. And I'm like, they'd have to be complete idiots to botch this that bad. And I'm sitting here, and you go old-fashioned and you think, well, what lines up? And you know that this back tab is going to need to go in a hole. And they claim it should be pre-drilled from the factory. And so you come up here and there's no holes. And you come here and you've got holes, right? And so that's my rearmost hole. And so I think, okay, let's line up the rearmost hole with this. And when you do that, things line up really well, I think. I haven't jacked it up into place, and I don't know what it's going to do at the back of the truck just yet. But that would mean that instead of using the rearmost hole that we've egged out to 9/16 and thrown metal down in our face for, a while, it should be this hole, not the big hole. You know, this is rearmost, not that one, but the one it's in. That's not 9/16. I haven't egged it out to 9/16 yet. It's just 1/2 inch. But I think that's where we need to go. And that would have been really nice to know that it wasn't the rearmost hole, but the third from the rear. Would have saved me a ton of time. I ate a ton of steel last night. I got in, I had that funky rash on my back, you know, like from laying in shrapnel. So that was cool. And anyway, yeah, I guess we need to do that again with the 9/16 enlargement there. Again, I don't really know why we can't run the 1/2 inch stuff. I guess the tensile strength. They must have some engineering validation for it, because otherwise they wouldn't spend the money to send the larger hardware. But yeah, I think that hole is where we need to be. Not one, not the big two, but 3. And I think that looks like it should line up fairly well. So that's what we'll do. I've got this side in place, and this will simplify things immensely if it lines up. So I think I'm just going to jack this up and see if it all kind of slots in. If it does, this is a very simple install, and you won't spend a lot of time on your back drilling. So I'm going to confirm that, and we'll be back. Alright, apologies if you hear that fan. I never know what it's doing until I edit, but it's hot and humid, so I'm not too sorry. That said, again, rearmost hole that we've egged out to 9/16. That one's occluded now, and look, the third hole, it lines up with the slot. It's oval, so we have side-to-side adjustment, which is good for that lip on the frame rail, right? Big oval hole that apparently we have to run the second spacer somewhere. It lines up with the bolts. And lastly, we've got the oval hole that's the last rearmost 1/2 inch hole drill in the frame rail, and it looks like she's gonna line up just fine. So that direction there, reading that thing, kind of sucked, because that cost me a lot of time and frustration, and otherwise this would have been a cakewalk. So my advice to you is, before you read your instructions, to be safe, whatever, prudential, but use common sense too, and you might wind up saving yourself a lot of time. So in my advice, what I would do based on my experience, take 3 1/2 inch bolts. I don't care about enlarging to 9/16. Take them, throw them on one side of the frame rail, whichever is easier for you to get to. We're on the passenger side. Slide them down and line it up with the hitch. If you're off, if you don't have easy access to these holes, reposition it. Change the position of the 3 holes, or the 3 bolts, I should say. I was about to think like I was going to have to spend 2 hours out here drilling the frame rail, and that's not a fun thing to do when you're laying on your back, right? So this simplifies it immensely. The sad thing is this was egged out for no reason, and I've got to do the 9/16 egg out again. So we'll do that. I'm going to try out a face shield I picked up recently. The safety glasses worked, but I mean, when I got in, I didn't realize it, but I had that aluminum, or steel I should say, all over my face. And again, it just like gets in under the creeper and got real bad. So anywho, I'm gonna get this figured out. I think this is gonna be super easy now that we actually have it lined up. So Curt seems to have done a good job on this, just a bad job on the directions, particularly for the rams. So I don't know, to their credit, maybe it's a freak deal. Maybe 01 or 2000 or 98 up is the only iteration of the 2nd gen that has this hole here, but it's something that they certainly could have clarified a bit better. So this is 20 years later, mind you, so I mean, there's been plenty of times for people to have these issues and tell them, or them to do installs, or dealers to have done installs and say, hey, this is incorrect, correct it. But we figured it out. It's very, very simple now, and I'll just burr this out, and I'll use the step drill and then burr it, but I'll try to show you how I do the hardware on the other side, and this should be really, really easy like I had hoped it would be. So I'm going to get to work, and we should have this knocked out really quick now, so we'll be back. Alright, so we're looking at the driver's side frame rail now, and I can tell you, it's real aggravating, because if you recall, that little tab right here that was totally occluding this rearmost hole that we were supposed to egg out to 9/16 and did, that is the fastener that I just had a devil of a time figuring out what it was. Wound up having to throw an impact on the back side and just go to town. But I want to highlight this. So if we come in, keep in mind as we take a look at the hardware here, your 9/16 carriage bolt, which is this one, it's going to be 1 3/4 long. Okay, so it's going to be a little bit shorter than this 2-inch, and the 2-inch is going to be your 1/2-inch carriage bolt. So basically, the 9/16 doesn't go in the rearmost hole, at least on a 2001 1500. It's going to go in the 3rd hole. Okay. So I can't put it there just for the fact I've yet to egg the hole out, but this is where it would drop down. The other thing I want to note is the directions. At this point in time, I'm very suspicious of them and not sure we should follow along. You'll note these brackets are squared out right, so the carriage bolt sits down in them, but you'll note that it's not like centered. You've got a short side over here where the traffic finger's at, and you've got a long side over here close to the bumper. The way the directions have them is they sit like this, okay, with the long side facing the rear of the truck. This cross member here looks like it's going to be in the way, so we may very well have to flip that one. But this guy, which I guess I've got all the halves over here, so if I were to pull this one out, we can take it over. Keep in mind, much easier to do this with a readily clean shop floor, but it's kind of hard left-handed and with the camera. But we want to take this one and do the same orientation and drop it down right there. So this one's fine on the driver's side. This one, with the bracket oriented like they want it, we're currently hitting that bracket. I could possibly seat it. I'm not sure there's enough space. And then this hole right here, we have to egg out. These rearmost, when I say that, I mean towards the bumper, have to be egged out for the 9/16. These are going to be 1/2 by 2, you know, your 2nd and your 3rd provision. This one right here is also going to get a same spacer between the frame rail and your flange, or I guess between the hitch and the flange nuts. So it would go carriage bolt, spacer, frame rail. Coming in, you'd have the hitch go up against that, then you would have another spacer, and then the flange nut. That'll make way more sense when you see it. But I think I've kind of walked you through that. I'll let you know what I do to correct this. Could be as simple as just flipping it. Obviously, we need to restore this back by tightening it up, because it never needed to be loosened in the first place. And of course, we've got to egg out this 3rd hole on both frame rails. So that should make this just a true bolt up. Obviously, I want to get some paint here, and then in this hole as well, we'll need to get some paint. Don't have to do it. I just like to be a little extra and take care of things if possible. At least have the peace of mind. So I'm going to go ahead and make that happen, and we'll showcase what we've got next. Alright, so the biggest hazard here is that. That is all sharp metal. I can't make it focus because I don't have 2 hands, but I've got some embedded under my watch, kind of stabbing her. Anyway, again, 3rd hole, you can hopefully see that we've freshly drilled that, ran the rasp over it just for safekeeping. If I sound weird, it's because I've got a face shield on, so I'm not sure, tilt her up, what it does to my voice, but the face shield was awesome. It's that Optrel one. I don't know, you'll probably see this before that video, so just ignore it. But safety glasses and the shield, and it's like super clear vision. I ran the shield trying to keep the shrapnel from falling in my hair again like it did last night, but all over my forearm and shirt. Hopefully it's not on my back on the creeper. But we've got that drilled out, and basically now I just need to shoot some spray paint. We'll just go with something flat black. That's one of the reasons I run the rasp, is to sort of prep it, give it like a surface to stick to. Once we do that, we can drop those carriage bolts in, and since we have that transmission jack, I can easily slide this sucker up. But before I do, I might put a bracket for our backup camera. So anyway, I'm going to get the paint going, because that's something that can dry, and we'll cover everything else as soon as we get to it. Before I do, it's always amazing, like you just see, again, I've got the face shield on, but like you just see the frickin' shrapnel. And all we were doing is going from 1/2 to 9/16, and again, like all that on my arm and shirt, it shows up really good on the black shirt. Like that crud, you don't want that in your eye. Like that's worse than like a big chip in the ways, because it's really hard to get this stuff out. So again, all underneath my watch, it's in there, and just a pain. If I were to grab our light from over here, don't know that it shows up real well, but everywhere you think you see something, You do. So it even sucks to roll the creeper through that stuff, and again, that's just such a small amount of drilling that we have to do, and this is what you're left with. So I'm going to try to clean this up, and then we'll spray some paint and we'll move on from there. Okay, so I mean, look at that. This is why I've got that like bad cut on my back from last night. The shrapnel just goes down your arm and somehow it gets underneath you. I was on the creeper the whole time. You can see tons of it there. And like I said, I mean, it doesn't like hurt super bad, but it's like an annoyance of a hurt. It goes everywhere. That's why I went ahead and threw the face shield on. I want to point this out. This is like my first time using the face shield. I took the cover off. Man, that thing is nice. I've sort of sad about that. We'll pull it off at some other point in time, but that thing worked really well. I've still got my safety glasses on. Again, you don't want this in your eyes. I put the shield on so I could try and keep it out of my hair, because that's how it got in my eye last night when I showered. Like I said, you know, if you're working on your back, just be mindful of this stuff. You can't really take too many precautions. It seems innocent as small little chips, but like I said, sometimes they're the worst ones because they go more places. But anyway, magnets will help, and I'm going to get this swept up, cleaned up off of me, quit stabbing me, and then we'll throw some paint on the drilled holes. Alright, so what we've got now, ran in, had supper, came back out, and I've got the paint dry and went ahead and just threw pour 15 down. It's a little overkill, but I've got some and figured I'd just as well use it. Plus I was curious if it was kind of like still stable or not, and it was. Looked like it was going to be fine. So the back hole that we shouldn't have even had to touch, we've now got that coated, and same with the third hole, 1, 2, and 3 right there where there's that white paint marker. That's where we should have started this thing. And then of course our next ones already have the hardware in place. Once that's dry, we're ready to put it in. This is super easy because, again, you just have that third hole that you have to enlarge on this truck. That said, you'll note I've got some aluminum on top. I'm kind of wanting to play around with making a bracket. In order to do that, I'm wanting to mock things up, right? You kind of have to know how much space we have sort of in this area here. And until I know that, I can't really proceed, so we'll have to mock it up. I'll probably come out tomorrow after work and do that. I don't want to risk the pour 15 being wet. This thing here that we had to loosen because we had to move the tab so we could, you know, get in there and drill. Well, I've got it tightened back up. I just used 3/4 and somehow the 15 held on this side, so that's taken care of. And that's kind of it for this segment. So when we come back, we'll just go ahead and like I said, play around with the bracket. That may be a standalone video, don't really know. But we'll get this thing mounted up and we'll showcase the end result. Alright, so don't exactly know where we left off, aside from the fact we'd hit some pour 15 in these holes that we needed to drill, and then the ones that we actually needed to drill. So going against the directions again, rearmost is not applicable. We fall into the third hole, if you will. But both of them, not sure how well you can actually tell, but I mean, if you see something that looks darker and glossy, that's the pour 15. So kind of overkill. Probably wouldn't have to do anything. Spray paint would be good, but brushed it, wanted it on there in every crevice, so I think we're home free. What I'm gonna do now, I think for the sake of this video, is just mount this thing. Again, knowing that you use that hole, this whole thing becomes so terribly easy. So once again, to kind of recap, as long as you come in, my truck could be different from yours, I don't know. Apparently the directions would lead me to believe that there's variance, but that hole right there, that is the rearmost hole, is not used. We would come in here. The way you will know that is if you match the hitch up with the other holes. You can do that by going back to the final 1/2 inch hole in your frame. Obviously those two right there, smaller. This will be the last 1/2 inch hole. Carriage bolt drops down there and here, and then boom, you egg that one out to 9/16, and everything lines up beautifully. Super easy, especially if you have 2 people, or if you have a jack or a transmission jack like that. I will tell you that that's a very awkward item, meaning you've got weight all over the place. If you note, that's like a V trough in your transmission jack, and that will spin, it will shift. So I've just got a little pair of 11-inch locking pliers there. That's doing a great job of holding it. I'm going to just go ahead and mock this in place. We won't torque it, but I will bolt it in. Mainly, I've got a lot going on, and I need to get that mower going, and my headers finally showed up today, and I just kind of want this in place, if you will. The catches will probably come back. I've got that angle iron sitting across there. I need to like fully mock this up to see what kind of clearance I have in this vicinity where my fingers are flapping for our backup camera. No backup camera mounts, no worries, but for me, I think I might be able to sneak that thing in there. It'll be a very, you know, concealed location, and I think pretty functional, so that's something we'll have to play with. But right now, I just kind of want to get this thing mocked up. So again, I've got these dropped in. The center bolt, if you will, or the forwardmost 1/2 inch by 2, that's going to need that extra spacer. Same thing, I think I can creep on over. We've got all that stuff there, and you can, I think, see both of those. So we'll get this thing mocked up, and I'll see if I can mount the camera. Probably do that in a standalone, as with the wiring for this hitch. But yeah, I'm just going to try to get this wrapped up, because there's just a ton of stuff in the personal life that has to get done too. So like I said, super easy if you've got multiple people or equipment. If you had maybe 6-ton jack stands, you know, and you could lay a board across them, you could, I mean, there's lots of ways you could do this, but I gotta say, if you've got one of these or you need an excuse to get one, super, super handy. So I'm gonna get it in place and we'll showcase the finished product. Tell you what, man, when you work alone, you find things that work with you, and this is awesome to see. So driver side lined up perfect, passenger side, I had to come and tap it. So obviously you keep a little slack, you don't go all the way against the frame rail. The good thing is this grade 8 hardware shows up really well. So this is our 9/16 towards the tailgate, and then up towards the engine. Boom. See how easy that is? So once again, 2nd gen Ram people, this is an 01, your truck could vary, but if you've got a hole, a 1/2 inch hole that's like within a fingernail of the end of the frame rail, don't drill that one out. Just go ahead and skip up and you'll be golden. Again, you can probably have better luck if you just mock the back 2 bolts up. My advice, take a 3rd 1/2 inch, you know, one from the other side, drop it in, and that will help you see what holes are going to line up. Again, at the start, I thought Curt was nuts, and I was thinking, like, we're going to have to Swiss cheese the whole frame rail, like I'm going to have to drill the whole thing, you know? And I'd understand, you know, like a hole or two, you know, so the Ford people can function with this too, but it's like, all of them? That's kind of shady, you know? So once you get the right hole, it's great. Everything's golden. Again, you just have to egg that out 1/2 to 9/16. This is the 1 3/4. These halves are both 2 inches, and everything lines up beautifully. Case in point, we'll skate by. And it is critical if you're doing this with a transmission jack or something, a jack stand, jack of some sort that's not perfectly flat, or that can't keep the load balance, because again, you've got heaviness here with this plate steel, but then that big bow, I mean, that's the heavy side there, so that thing's going to want to rock like this. Keep that in mind. In this case, I've ditched the 2 6-inch clamps and just have the 11. It's working great. I've got a not hit all this sheet metal over here, but I think I can tilt you there and you can see those 3 grade 8 carriage bolts dropping down ever so beautifully. And if you note, my angle iron here clears the bumper. That is a good thing. So I'll get this bolted up, but I'm not going to torque anything. I will tell you the torque specs before we end, because I'll, truth be told, be dropping this back down to deal with the camera, but right now I just kind of want to get it in place. So I'll do that and we'll check back at the finished result. Alright, so you're on the driver's side, rear, front, tailgate, engine. Middle one, that's going to have that little spacer. Again, the instructions had the overage, since those aren't center punched holes. Every time there's overage, it faces towards the rear of the tailgate of the truck. So again, your forwardmost 2 bolts are going to be grade 8 half 13 by 2 inch carriage bolts, and then the rearmost, that's going to be a step up. It's going to be the 9/16 by 1 3/4. If we come in, again, I don't have anything torqued down, but these were my weapons of choice here. Only places you'll see stupid stuff like this. Hazette 916 HP, a Gedore 10-inch extension, and Proto impact sockets. Why? Well, we had an impact over here because I planned to use one, and we didn't because we're not going to torque it. I just need to see what kind of clearance we have for the backup camera. Same thing, you can probably see it a little bit better over here. Again, that's your setup, that's what you need to do. 9/16 is drilled out in the front, 1/2" bolts in the back. The halves are 2, 9/16 is 1 3/4. That's your orientation. Worked beautifully. Again, just a locking C-clamp there on the transmission jack. I can push that up out of the way. The main thing, again, if I can do this without clocking myself, is just this, okay? So that is the piece of aluminum angle. It's not quite tall enough. I wish it was, what is this, 3/4? Okay. I wish this was like 1 inch. I kind of feel like 1 inch would actually fit there. That would give me space for, I don't know, this. This is the bracket for our rear view camera. And if I mock it up just right here for visuals, it's very easy to see with that aluminum. See how it's that much taller? If we were able to get like 1 inch or 1.5 inch angle iron there, which I think we've got the clearance for, it would allow us to do 2 things. Number one, this is an adhesive mount. I assume it's pretty strong. The camera is also absurdly lightweight, but that would allow us to mount that securely. We could drill it as well, kind of drill it and tap it with some tiny, tiny little screws. We can have the adhesive, and then right here on this bottom lip of the angle iron, I can come in and just drill this flat bar, and that would allow us to have it bolted in place. Shouldn't be any clearance issues here. These are actually pretty oversized for your safety chains and everything. So I kind of think this is a viable option. If I bring the sock down, you're like, the sock? Well, that's where the camera's at. So this is a bad example because I'm coming with the wire from this side, but I mean, this is how small the camera is, right? So we've got a lot of potential here. I'm pretty excited about this. I'm very glad before I did something crazy. This is a much easier place to mount this. Obviously, aluminum, I would love to use it there. It's not going to rust. We could do stainless. We'll do stainless or aluminum, probably aluminum. It's a little cheaper, easier to work with. But what we'll do is black it out. We're not going to leave it natural, which with aluminum I typically do. Aluminum and stainless, you know, as a machinist, you kind of like natural finishes. But in this case, I don't want it to stick out, don't want it to stand out, want it to blend in. Especially in the case, you kind of have to be a special kind of stupid to cut off someone's backup camera, but I mean, people do crazy things. I mean, they're taking catalytic converters for frick's sake. So, the more discreet we can make it, the better. Most people wouldn't even know it was here, and we'll just go to town that way. So yeah, this is the Hitch. Let's go ahead again. Here's a better look at my setup. Kind of weird fitment on these, I have to tell you. The Gedore extension would only like go on one way onto the ratchet. That socket down there, the 3/4, fit fine, and then for some reason this one, the 7/8 for our 9/16, it was like a different story there. But anywho, let's come over. I've got to grab the phone so we can take a look at this. I want to give you the torque specs. So 1/2 inch hardware is 110 foot-pounds, 9/16 hardware 130 foot-pounds. So to recap that, the big one in the back, your 9/16 by 1 3/4. Final installation, you would want 130 foot-pounds. And then right here, your two 1/2 13 by 2 inch, you're going to do 110. So 110 for your small stuff, 130 for the big one in the back by the tailgate. Before I torque it down, I don't care what anyone says. I am marine grade. This is face down, which is how I like it. I like the nut to drop off and the bolt still be in place, particularly a carriage bolt. It's got that nice square channel on it. But since that's a fastener exposed to the elements, I put anti-seize on it. I don't care about torque specs. I don't care about, that's what I'm going to do. Because if I take this off, I want it to be like I want it, not how someone else wants it. So you might want to do the same thing. Makes your life easier down the road should you want to take the hitch off, upgrade it, take the hitch off and sell it if you're, you know, getting rid of your truck and you want to kind of part it out and maximize your, you know, income type of a deal. All things to think long term, if you will. But yeah, that's it, man. That is the Curt 15300, I believe, trailer hitch, class 5. Really nice once you know the direction's wrong and you need to use a different hitch there, different drill. So right here, our NWS. Boom. Love the release on the German style pliers. You never pinch your fingers like you do with the traditional vice grips. But yeah, there it is. I'll drop this sucker down. Got the old Tecton roto head there to do it. And I will say that the extension, I had this one for the impact, and then I finally gave in and went and grabbed the Gedore. You will want that just because when you're down here swinging the ratchet with a socket, you'll run into the hitch or the tire. Spare tire, if you've got one mounted, the extension will give you the clearance you need. It'll save you time in the long run. So there's the angle from this side. Again, that'll be another video for another day. But we will be dropping this thing. That seems like it's a step backwards, but I wanted it mocked up so I could fully, measure everything. I'll mock it up in that video specifically for our camera. We'll probably pre-cut, pull it down. Obviously it's going to be way easier to drill this at a press or even just on the ground where you can stand on it. But that's what we're going to do, and it should be cool. So of course there, since we're doing it, it's going to be stainless hardware. If you want to be OP, you could even tap the hole, so keep that in mind. But yeah, we'll figure all that out. But I have to say, once you know that the instructions are wrong and you need to drill the third hole, this is a very, very simple installation. And like I said, even when I was mad at this thing, which we'll probably have to edit that out, not because I wasn't like super mad, I was just disappointed mad. We'll edit that out just because it's wasted content now. But even when I was upset with this thing and the directions and everything, saying like this is ridiculous, going on and carrying on about it, I still said it's a really nice hitch. It's just a shame they didn't adapt for whatever changes happened. And so with this video, hopefully it saves you some time because you'll know to drill the third hole. And if you do that, this is cakewalk. Hardest thing will be positioning it, of course. So C-clamps and a transmission jack or a standard jack, pallet on a jack, you can make it happen. Obviously, a couple extra hands would be nice, but if you work solo, it is doable, especially if you've got assistance like I do. So well, that's it. I'll quit rambling. I am sweating my butt off out here. Keep the door down because the mosquitoes are so bad. And I think I'm going to go make supper. But super excited, A, because we can mock this up, and B, the headers are here. So very, very exciting on that front. But got it, like I said, a ton going on and not a lot of time to do it. So we're going to call this good. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed. Hopefully this helped you out. Again, if you're curious about wiring this thing up, we'll be doing a 4-pin for now, and so I'll have a standalone video on that. If it's short, maybe I'll put it on this one. I don't know. It's kind of hard to record a good video when it's, you get 30-40 minutes here and there across a couple nights. So that aside, thanks for watching. Hopefully this helped you. LoneStarMopars.com is the website. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all three at Lone Star Mopars. And with that said, we'll catch you back here shortly.